Welcome to part 2 of the Axolotl tutorial. In this video we'll do the legs, the gills, the tail detail and the assembly. First we are going to make the legs in the primary color, and you will need to make 4 legs. In round 1 it's 6 single crochet in a magic ring. In round 2 we do 6 increases, which brings you to 12 stitches. And then in round 3, which is the last round, we just do 12 single crochet around. After round 3, you can close with a slip stitch and then cut the yarn, making sure you have a bit of a tail for sewing onto the body later. Now, working with the secondary color, we're going to start on the gills, and you will need to make 6 of these. In round 1, we do 4 single crochet in a magic ring. Round 2, we do 4 increases, which brings you to 8 stitches in round 2. Now for the next 4 rounds, so that's rounds 3 to 6, we just do 8 single crochet around. After round 6, we can close with a slip stitch and then cut the yarn, making sure there's a bit of a tail for sewing. Lastly, we are going to crochet the tail detail, once again in the secondary color. To start, we make a slip knot and we chain 15. Now, starting from the second chain from the hook, we do 3 double crochet into the same stitch. Then we do a slip stitch into the next stitch. And then we skip the next stitch. And now we do that 3 more times. Now there are 2 chain stitches left, so we do 3 double crochet in the first chain stitch, and we do a slip stitch into the last chain stitch. Now you should have 5 frills. And now we can cut the yarn, making sure to leave a tail for sewing. Now we are going to sew on the gills, and I like to put them on the side of the head like so. So remember, we have 6 gills in total. First, thread the needle with the short yarn tail from the magic ring. And the first gill I like to place with the top being in line with that eye, just on the side of the head. Insert the first tail and pull it through to the back of the head. Now we will sew on the gill using the long tail. Just check again to make sure the gill is in the right place. Now we grab a stitch from the head and go up into a stitch of the gill and down into the next stitch of the gill, and then we grab the next stitch of the head, and we repeat this all the way around the gill. After you've gone through all the stitches, we can insert that tail and pull it back to the same point on the head as the first tail. Then we can just knot these tails together and cut the yarn short and insert that knot into the head. Now the second gill will go on the opposite side, with the top being in line with that eye. And we sew it on exactly the same way as the first. Just make sure as you're working that it is symmetrical with the first gill. The third gill will go directly on top of the first, and I don't like to have a gap between the gills. I like them to be touching at the bottom. We'll sew this on exactly the same way as the first 2. And I'll finish this one and the 4th one off camera. The last 2 gills will go directly on top of the previous ones. Once again, I'll do these off camera. The completed gills should look like this. Now we are going to start sewing on the tail. Place the tail on the underside of the body slightly towards the back. If you wish, you can pin it in place before sewing on. We sew it in place exactly the same way as the other pieces, by grabbing a stitch from the body, then going up into a stitch of the tail and back down into a stitch of the tail, and repeating this all the way around. Now we can just bring that tail to a few points on the body to secure it. Next we are going to sew on the top legs, slightly further apart than the eyes over here. Just like with the gills, we insert the short tail into the piece and then we sew the leg in place using the long tail. And we sew this on the same way as before. After the leg is sewed on about 2/3 of the way, we can insert a little bit of stuffing. Now we can just bring through that long tail and tie it together with the first one. The second leg will go onto the opposite side exactly the same way as the first, and I'll do this off camera. Next you will sew the bottom legs directly underneath the top legs, and once again I'll do this off camera. Lastly, we are going to sew on the tail detail, and I like to do this from the back, but you can sew it on from the front if you wish. First, I like to take the shorter of the two tails and insert that on the side of the tail like so, and just bring that yarn tail through to the tip. Then we can just grab a stitch from that middle arch. So there's 5 arches, we just grab a stitch from the middle one and stitch back into the tail. Going along the left hand side, you can just grab a few stitches. You don't have to go into each stitch, but just grab 2 or 3 along the side. And then I'm just going to grab that last frill over here and insert the yarn back towards the middle. And now I'm going to repeat the same on the opposite side, just grabbing a few stitches as you go. Once you've gone into enough stitches to keep that tail detail secure, you can insert the yarn tails back to the middle of the piece and then tie them together. Now the tail should have frills like this, and your axolotl is completed. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.